කො සීතල පිනිබිඳු ඇයිනෙන පිංචි පැංචි පුංචි කිරිලියෝ කොට රතු කරගිය
මේ ස්ථානයේදී ප්‍රාර්ථනට යෙදෙන්නේ පොලිය තරුණ මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ගේ හමුවක්. මේ හමුවට රටවල් 30කට 40කට අධික රටවල් වලින් විශාල තරුණ මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් සහවරියන් සහභාගී වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් උනන්දුවක් දක්වන විවිධ ජාත්‍යන්තර ස්වේච්ඡා සංවිධානවල සහභාගීත්වය තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි අපි මේකේ ප්‍රධාන අරමුණ වෙන්නේ 2014 2015 වගේ කාලවල එතනින් ඔබට මේ ආසියා කලාපයේ රටවල් වල න්‍යාය පත්‍රයක් සකස් කර ගන්නවා. අපි එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ සහයෝගය ඇතිව තමයි මේ න්‍යාය පත්‍රය අපි සකස් කරන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒකට අදහස් එක රාශි කිරීමක් වෙනවා. ඒක ලබන අවුරුද්දේ ලංකාවේ පවත්වන්න යන තරුණ මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ගේ සම්මේලනයට උපයෝගී කරගන්න පුළුවන්. එතනදී පුළුල් ලෙස සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඉන් ඔබට මේ වැඩ කටයුතු කරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම තමයි අපේ ලංකාවෙන් අද දවසේ මේට සහභාගී වෙනවා පාර්ලිමේන්තු නියෝජ්‍ය කාර්යක සභාපතිතුමාත් ඒ වගේම උපේක්ෂා ස්වර්ණමාලි මන්ත්‍රීතුමියත් ශයන් සේමසිංහ මන්ත්‍රීතුමාත් ආරම්භයක් හැටියට මේ වැඩසටහනට සහභාගී වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි අපි දකිනවා 140ක් පමණ ලෝක තරුණ පිරිසගේ විවිධ ප්‍රශ්න රාශියක් තියෙනවා. රැකියාරක්ෂා ප්‍රශ්නය තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම අධ්‍යාපන ශාස්ත්‍රයේ ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම කුඩා නොගැලපෙන වයසේ, තරුණ වයසේ, බාල වයසේ විවාහ සිදුවීම් තියෙනවා. ඒ කාලයට උචිත නොවන වයසේ. ඒ වගේම බාල වයස්කාර දරුවන් ගැබ් ගැනීම වගේ දේවල්. ඒ වගේමින් ඔබට යනකොට HIV AIDS වගේ රෝග වගේ දේවල් ඇති වෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ හැම දෙයකටම අන්‍යෝන්‍ය අපේ අදහස් වමාරු කර ගැනීම තමයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි දකිනවා අපේ අතිගරු ජනාධිපති මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා අවදාර වැඩපිළිවෙලක් කරා තරුණ පරම්පරාව මේ රටේ සංවර්ධන ක්‍රියාදාමයේ වගකීම තරුණ පරම්පරාවටත් දිය යුතුයි. ඒ අයත් ඒ වගකීම බාර අරගෙන ඉදිරියට එන්නට අවස්ථාවක් ලබා දෙන්න මේක මුළු ලෝකෙටම දුන්න ආදර්ශයක් හැටියට අපි දකිනවා. දැන් මේ මාතෘකාව අපි ඉදිරියේදී කතාවට වාජනය වෙනවා. ඒ හරහා මම හිතනවා හොඳ විසඳුම් මාලාවකට අපිට අදහස් මාලාවකට ගොනු වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
පුතු කොයිද සොයන්නියා කොයිද පුතේ ඇතින්නේ
සොන්නක තිනදිස් කුන්දහකඩ දෝන් දදොස් දොන්තොන් සොන්නන්නම් තමන සොමන පදතොන් ගුරුමිත්තා හිනතා හින දීසක් තලම් දුටක සොගතක තදිගින තේ
Honorable parliamentarians from Asia and the Pacific, Europe, Africa, for this remarkable event. The second Global Young Parliamentarians Consultation on ICPD and post 3 decades of war. Costing of these events aimed at mobilize and ICPD issues. Sure. The trust placed in the young parliamentarians to share their experience and to building efforts of the government. I believe that the sessions ahead will all participants will engage in the discussion that following today and tomorrow so that we can devise a set of recommendations to strengthen the ICPD, but also the memories of splendid beauty of our country, Sri Lanka. I also wish to thank them.
Thank you very much to our Deputy Chairman of the committees from the Child Development and Women's Affairs of Sri Lanka, and also he's also member of the Parliament. In September last year, we were here for the meeting of the Male Standing Committee of Parliamentarians of the ICPD. And you can just imagine how much
Parliamentarians on the prevention of violence against women. I am very happy indeed that the UNFPA New York office and the AFPPD have selected Sri Lanka as the venue for holding the second Global Young Parliamentarians Consultation on ICPD and post-2015 UN Development Agenda. First of all, on behalf of the government of Sri Lanka, let me very warmly welcome our distinguished young parliamentarians from across the world to our beautiful country, Sri Lanka, and wish them all an educative and productive time at this important event. Also, I wish to extend my congratulations to the Executive Director of the AFPPD, Mr. Ramon San Pascal, and his able staff who have organized this consultative meeting with the great professionalism and skill. If only you visited Sri Lanka 4 years ago, you would not have dreamt of holding an important event like this in Sri Lanka today. Due to the correct vision and the strong leadership and the courage of our President, His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa, he was able to defeat a ruthless terrorist movement and usher a new era of peace and stability in Sri Lanka, which enable us live in peace and harmony, and therefore to host this important meeting. It is my understanding that during this second Global Young Parliamentarians
consultative meeting, you will be able to review the progress so far made on activities that the ICPD pledged to perform at its first global meeting, and also you will be able to make appropriate recommendation in drawing up an agenda and a plan of action for post-2014-2015 scenario. In drawing up an agenda for the future, I strongly feel that we should pay special attention to the youth, as it is said that approximately 40% of the global population consists of youth, and approximately 90% of them live in the developing countries. I am therefore happy to note that the International Conference on Population and Development, ICPD, has recognized this fact and has already named the young peoples a priority. The youth of today in many countries are confronted by a series of problems like unemployment, not having access to proper education, child marriage and child pregnancy, exposed to HIV, AIDS, use of drugs, to name a few. These issues pose a serious challenges for policymakers, national leaders and the global community, and therefore any agenda without taking into account the youth needs, aspirations and challenge would be ineffective. It is therefore pertinent that the voice of the youth are heard in the national, regional and international platforms on policy making, as well as planning and plan implementation. Therefore, I see an urgent need for integrating youth into our national policy making and implementation mechanism. As far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we have mainstreamed youth in the policy consultation process through a multi-layer framework involving youth organization in villages, districts, provinces, and the national level. I am also happy to mention that Sri Lanka will be hosting the World Youth Conference in 2014. The goal of the conference is to integrate youth participation and mainstream youth perspectives in the post-2015 development agenda. I am sure this consultation meeting will provide a wonderful opportunity for the young parliamentarians gathered here to learn from each other's experience and also make their valuable inputs for drawing up the post-2015 UN development agenda. I also sincerely hope that this meeting will give you a good understanding of the ICPD issues and would also make you more active advocates for the implementation of ICPD programs in your own countries. I wish you a very pleasant stay in Sri Lanka and hope you will visit us again in their near future. Thank you very much.
She had her first pregnancy at 14, and after 3 days of labor in her village, she went to the health center, but it was already too late. She had lost the child. Today, at 30, she's delivered 11 children, with only one surviving. She has a 5-year-old daughter called Aisha. While delivering her 11th child, she contracted obstetric fistula. This condition occurs after a long labor in which a woman is not assisted by a qualified health personnel. Luckily, when UNFPA came across her, she was having her fistula repaired at a UNFPA-supported clinic. In Niger, where Balki lives, her story is not unusual. Every 2 hours, a child or a woman dies while giving birth. The maternal mortality rate in Niger is 554 for every 100,000 live births. They die because they get pregnant too early. They have too many children, and they're risking their lives in the process. On average, a Nigerian woman has 7.1 children in her lifetime, and adolescents, 15 to 19 years old, account for 14% of that fertility rate. Needless to say, Niger has the highest rate of child marriage in the world. 75% of Nigerian girls are married by the time they reach 18, and 36% of them are married before they're 15. Most have no access to family planning or reproductive health services, and of course the consequences are dire. 64% of Niger's population is under 24, and adolescent girls are an important part of that youth bubble. And they could be contributing enormously to Niger's development. But if they continue to be forced into marriage as children, they continue to have 7 children themselves, if they don't finish school and learn skills, they'll only continue to contribute to the high numbers of maternal deaths, fistula, unwanted pregnancies, and low educations, all of which results in very poor outcomes. Why can we not change the outcomes and the trajectory for young girls like Balki? Can you change the slide, please? Almost 20 years ago, at the 1994 Conference on Population and Development in Cairo, representatives of civil society, the UN system, technical experts, and 179 governments met and made history. The agreement they signed up to, the ICPD Programme of Action as we call it, shifted the focus of population policies and programs away from human numbers and towards human rights. There was a call for gender equality and the empowerment of women as an end in itself, and as a key to improving the quality of life for everyone, and the recognition that sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights are basic rights applicable to each and every one of us. These 179 countries, your countries, agreed to take steps to ensure that by 2014, no woman would die in pregnancy or childbirth, every girl would be in school, and everyone would have access to a full range of reproductive health services. So are we there yet? Over the next 2 days, we'll discuss the themes that emerged from Cairo and examine some of the preliminary results of the current review that we're undertaking on the progress on the Programme of Action. A girl born when those countries met to discuss the Programme of Action in 1994 has now crossed into adolescence and become a woman of about 18 years old. The question we have to ask ourselves is how much of an impact have we made on her life? And what kind of a world are we shaping for the children born today and tomorrow? While there have been some successes, for the most part, the ICPD Programme of Action remains an unfinished agenda. The Millennium Development Goal 5, the MDG 5 as we call it, calls for a reduction in maternal deaths and for universal access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. But it's one of the goals with the highest risk of not being met. Since 1990, global maternal death rates have reduced by more than a third. And in fact, we're here in Sri Lanka, which has an incredible record on maternal health. With some countries showing that much can be accomplished through political will and strategic interventions. And yet every day, approximately 800 women die from pregnancy complications and childbirth, and the majority of them are in sub-Saharan Africa and in South Asia, in this neighborhood. Most of these deaths can be prevented. For every woman who dies, around 20 are seriously injured or suffer disabilities. And this is unacceptable when we know exactly what to do to reduce maternal mortality. It's not a mystery. We have the drugs, and we know what skills are required. One of the most effective ways of reducing maternal deaths would be to provide contraception and family planning services to the 222 million women who've expressed a need and a desire for it, but cannot access products and services. So addressing that unmet need remains an urgent priority and would go a long way to changing the lives of women, communities, and countries. In this world of 7 billion, roughly a quarter, 1.8 billion, are between the ages of 10 and 24. And as the Honourable Minister was referencing, this is the largest population of adolescents and youth ever in history. There are 500 million adolescent girls in the developing world. About half of these young people, especially the ones aged 10 to 24, survive on less than $2 a day. And more than 100 million adolescents are not in school. The inequities between countries and within countries have expanded, with bigger disparities between the rich and the poor, between the urban and the rural. So what are the prospects for these uneducated and poverty-stricken youth? What are the implications for your societies of their lack of opportunity? Adolescent girls continue to be the most vulnerable of this group. 1 out of 9 girls will be married before their 15th birthday. Between 2000 and 2010, at least 67 million girls were married before their 18th birthday. And yes, these are wedding photos. 16 million adolescent girls become mothers every year. If current trends continue, by 2020, some 142 million girls will be married before they're 18. And most adolescent pregnancy occurs in marriage. In low and middle income countries, complications from pregnancy are the leading cause of death among adolescent girls aged 15 to 19. These young mothers cannot finish their education. They become trapped in a cycle of poverty and are unable to participate in economic activity. How does this contribute to the upliftment of their communities, of their countries? We know that adequately addressing these challenges can bring rich rewards. Having less children brings immediate health benefits to the mother and her children, with smaller families directly correlated with better health for all, and children are more likely to stay in school longer. We know that better educated girls themselves marry later, have less children, and have better educated children. And as fertility rates steadily decline over the course of 20 or 30 years, the number of income-generating adults, employed adults, grows relative to the number of people who depend on them for support. And this creates very favorable conditions for economic growth and sustainable development. It's what we call the demographic dividend. And it has been a key driver for growth and sustainable development in Asia and Latin America, and in the Middle East and parts of North Africa. UNFPA is currently working actively with the African Union and African governments to prepare for and benefit from this demographic dividend, which has yet to really contribute to development in sub-Saharan Africa. To really understand the benefit from the population dynamics underpinning the demographic dividend, we need good data. Global and national population dynamics and trends, including changes in size, structure, composition, and spatial distribution of populations, are key determinants of current and future social and economic development and environmental sustainability. And you, as parliamentarians, need this information to create the right policies, to build better societies for the people who live in them. As we accelerate towards the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals, we must also look beyond that to try to define what the global development agenda should look like post-2015. As parliamentarians, You have a unique perspective and opportunity to ensure appropriate policies at the national level, to promote a progressive, people-centered agenda, and to influence your country's contribution to this global debate through the intergovernmental processes and the UN processes over the next few years. UNFPA is calling for 4 main areas of investment and focus for the post-2015 development agenda. We want to uphold universal and equitable access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights, including voluntary family planning and maternal health, in particular for women, girls, and young people, and particularly protecting vulnerable populations in conflicts, emergencies, and humanitarian catastrophes. We want to put young people, as the Minister so ably argued, at the forefront of development, adopting rights and gender-based policies and investments that address young people's, including adolescents, sexual and reproductive health needs and reproductive rights. And by that I do mean contraception available for unmarried young people, and creating opportunities for young people to realize their full potential. We want to embed gender equality as key to human rights development, aiming to remove the root causes of gender inequality and discrimination, particularly the cultural, social, and economic barriers that prevent women, men, and young people's access to sexual and reproductive health services. And finally, we want to recognize and engage with the invaluable contribution that an understanding of inclusion of population dynamics offers to the success of sustainable development. And we have to hold the development community accountable for the intimate relationship between understanding of population dynamics and its processes and progress in sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. The last 20 years has seen remarkable progress and change. You are the leaders with the power to guide transformational change needed over the next 20 years. And there will be transformation. But delivering a more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable world where everyone's potential is fulfilled requires effort on your part. In 2034, what world will we be living in? What will you do now to lead this next generation to a better future? I really look forward to discussing that with you over the next few days. Thank you very much.
Krabi, and then in the last international conference of parliamentarians held in Turkey, in Istanbul, early last year. So we're happy to be represented by the young MPs that are here by Senator Malaka Parker.
Of ceremonies, let me acknowledge, of course, the head table, which comprises our hosts and the visionary organizations and governments who has brought us here today as young parliamentarians. I would like to publicly use this forum on behalf of all of us to thank the ICPD for always being so progressive and visionary in their mission. I'd like to thank UNFPA, of course, and the Sri Lankan government for allowing us to have such an important forum to discuss the pressing issues that we are faced with today. Now, young parliamentarians, let me begin by telling you why I'm here and the irony of what has brought me here. Because, as you hear Raymond struggle with the name of my country, Antigua and Barbuda, I represent one of the smallest nation states in the world, a very tiny island in the Caribbean Sea. On most maps, quite often, we're not even represented there, okay? They just eliminate the little dot. That is my country. A population of only 100,000 persons. And still, I'm allowed this platform to address you. And this is what the UNFPA organization is about, and the ICPD agenda. Because only with such an agenda, which values the voice of every man, of every woman, of every young girl and boy, that we can share our issues just based on a human by human encounter and valuing each voice around the table. And so it is exceedingly privileged for me to be able to be here today to not only symbolize the hope that is the vision of the ICPD, but also as a young parliamentarian to at least give some assurance that our issues are the same, no matter where we are in the world. Now, as a young parliamentarian, I know quite often we are very confused in terms of what our direction will be. I want to say that in becoming a parliamentarian about 4 years ago, a senator, I faced that uncertainty, and you feel the immense responsibility that leadership should feel. And I was fortunate that I encountered the ICPD agenda very early as a parliamentarian. And the focus, the clarity, the sense of direction that this agenda provides as a young parliamentarian seeking what is best for the development of your country is something that I hope all of us in this room today continues as we look to ICPD and beyond. And by that I mean the very focus that Diane spoke about that was shifted on the global stage in 1994 when there was a new approach to looking about development and national progress, where there was a new focus away from statistics and numbers to a focus on people and human development. And I want to say that as a young parliamentarian, that is in fact the sort of clarity that we need, the sort of direction, the objective for which we must seek to serve our people. So I'm standing here today, and I want to take just 2 minutes to paint the backdrop of what is happening on the global stage as we as young people gather to discuss the ICPD agenda beyond 2014. Young people, we know that we are living in a world of 7 billion and growing. And yet still, as the world expands, we know that it is also shrinking. We know this because we are still in the throes of the greatest global economic decline the world has seen in a generation, or certainly in our generation. The smallness of the world is brought home by the fact that all young people across every nation feel the same weight of joblessness. And we know that the youth and women are primarily the casualties of this global economic downturn. Young people, we gather at a time when issues around HIV/AIDS, although the fight has been advanced for many years, although the investment of monies and the loss of lives has been so tremendous, that still we grapple with the reality that HIV/AIDS prevalence is something that the world's population, the world's government, the world's people is yet to address. Across the globe, we as young people live with the reality that the HIV/AIDS epidemic is also, incidentally, a youth epidemic, as it turns out to be, because 41%, my young people, of every new HIV-acquired situation is happening among our young people. That is almost half of every new HIV/AIDS infection. And if we are paying attention, as I know we are as young leaders, it is also evident and unfortunate that a great majority of those infected with HIV/AIDS, apart from being young, are also female. My friends, we gather today and for the next 2 days on the backdrop of issues and debates around environmental degradation, issues and debates around climate change and sustainable development. And I stand as testament, like I said, coming from a very small country where we understand so fundamentally about the effects of climate change and how our changing climate, because of course of our man-made actions and impurities, and I think we all know the research, that the issues around climate change and sustainable development are so real for many countries in the world that they are in fact the issues around life and death, around sustainability of economies. And that is because a lot of our economies, as small countries, are so vulnerable. We gather here today, my young people, on the backdrop, and I tie the issue of climate change also to the issue of food insecurity. And we know that the issues around food security continue to exacerbate the issues around poverty and the ability for persons to be healthy, and for young girls and women especially to be able to have the sort of nourishment and that they need in growing. My young people, we gather here today with the issues of child marriages, of genital mutilation, and even gender selection still being the reality in many countries. We gather here today knowing that every day 800 women die giving life to someone else. My young people, we gather here today as many conflicts continue to rage in many countries, and we know the casualty and the collateral damage that these conflicts and wars continue to cause, and the fact that they only seek to erode the gains that have been made by the ICPD agenda. This is the backdrop that I wish to paint for you today, but I do not do so to scare you. It is just the reality in which we live. I do so to show you the challenges with which we are faced, but also to say to you that we are the opportunity, the world's hope, to reverse the trends that we are now seeing. Young people, it is very important that we as young leaders do what youth are historically known to do. We're not asking our young people here today to do anything but be yourself. And in being young, we do expect us to be passionate, to be sincere in our efforts to bring change. And we also know that in any global movement, in any story of human progress and advancement, quite often it is the youth that leads that charge. We are fortunate, irregardless of the backdrop that I've just painted, that now more than ever, there are a lot of young people in positions of leadership. We are also fortunate, and I'm identifying the opportunities which serve as tools to advance this agenda. We are also fortunate, my young people, that we have agencies such as the UNFPA and governments who have made a commitment to advance this ICPD agenda. In 1994, when the Program of Action was signed and adopted by many of our countries, if not all of the countries represented here today, I was 15 years old, and many of you, I believe, was younger. And our concept, our idea of the world was probably just shaping. And it was being shaped without the knowledge of what was happening at a leadership level. Okay, but 20 years later, we are inheriting the fruits and, of course, the vision that was sealed 20 years ago. And so I ask us as young people to advance the Program of Action in the ICPD agenda, to look 20 years down the road, to look at a vision, at a future that we stand poised and able to shape. I want us to recognize, my youth, that we also need to do this on a human rights-based agenda. It is quite important for us to keep human rights at the focus of our development in any country in which we reside. Our issues are not different. Our values are not that different. And certainly, our aspirations as young people are the same. Every one of us in here are here not only because of the leadership position that we hold, but also because we must be the voice of our peers. We must be the voice of those young girls who remain voiceless. It is up to us to carry this message on their behalf. And so, over the next 2 days, it is my hope that these values are reinforced. I think that you come here, I'm just going off of the fact that you are young. I believe that you come here already with a set of ideas and ideology that is, quite frankly, mostly aligned with the program of action in the ICPD, because I know we want the same thing. Each young person to be educated, for the issues around child labor to be removed from all our countries, for the issues around child marriages and forced marriages to be reduced, for no woman to die giving life to another person. These are the issues which unite us, and these are the issues, when we advance them together, will certainly provide a future for the next generation. That is the charge that Diane made in her speech. She asked the question, what will we pass on to the next generation? And I believe that it will be a future worth passing on. So I look forward to engaging with all of you over the next 2 days. I look forward to the spirited discussions, and certainly to you adding your voice to the shaping of the program of action beyond 2014. Thank you.
Hari honda ape amma menna koida putte kiri muttiya Hotel atu kar geet gayan